Thank you for coming, Turi.
Thank you for coming to my house.
I mean, I'm here in your house.
Welcome.
Thank you for coming on my podcast.
It's
That's
my
good.
absolute pleasure, Tom.
Man, food as medicine.
Right.
I love it. I love it. Can you tell me where it all started?
There
Where does it all
was
change?
literally an aha moment, and I had been in the restaurant business in Melbourne for about 15 years, and then I retrained as a clinical nutritionist. And the first subject on the first day of school was food as medicine. And I sat there, and within about half an hour, it was like the thunderbolt you see in the cartoons. It was literally, this is what I want to do, this is my calling. And so I thought I'd only do one subject of nutrition, but I was so enthralled that I continued doing and finishing the diploma. But it was literally that one moment in that college where I was like, this is where my career path turns.
This is where I want to go.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because your background is your family had a business, and so you already were into
So
cooking.
I was already in the restaurant business, front of house. I didn't work in the kitchen. I was too terrified of, the male-dominated chef industry. But my father went into the restaurant industry in the late 1970s in Melbourne. So I grew up at the restaurant table, in and out of school, obviously, after school and so forth. And so we'd been in restaurants already for maybe 15 years. And my brother and I had a hotel in Melbourne, my old hometown. And in the beginning of the 90s, I'd lost my father to cancer, and I was really devastated, not just with the loss, but also that I'd already been in food for a long time, and I knew nothing about the healing property of food and nutrition. And during his diagnosis, the oncologist essentially said, be careful drinking too much champagne, because he loved champagne. Don't eat smoked salmon because it's smoked, and eat more bran muffins for the fibre. And that was the basic, primary therapeutic prescription. And that's all there was for his cancer process. So during the end of the 90s, when I began this body of study, then I set about trying to find maybe not a cure for cancer using food as medicine, but certainly understand the healing properties of food. And that's what I've been doing ever since now. It's 26 years. So 40 years in total of being in, maybe more now, in food and hospitality, and 26 of those has been devoted to the pursuit of food as medicine.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what is it about food that makes it medicine?
I think if we look at the cellular component and a lot of the polyphenols and different compounds that exist within different foods, then you get an understanding of the bioavailability of the nutrients, but you also can understand how the medicinal approach or the efficacy of ingredients. So something like turmeric, which is very popular now, and it wasn't maybe 20 years ago. There are a lot of proven studies, of course, and different bodies of work that suggest how powerful turmeric is. So when it's used with black pepper as an example, it helps that carotenoid be more bioavailable when that person digests it. So that to me was really amazing, is looking at the different compounds. And also I studied the Mediterranean diet for quite some time, and in the Mediterranean, particularly for the men, they have a lot more cooked tomato products, which brings about a substance called Lycopene, which is really important in helping to lower PSA levels in men for prostate health and so forth. So I saw that firsthand in the school clinic, in the student clinic when I was practicing there, as how powerful using food as medicine can be for controlling and supporting different markers in the body.
Because is that certain times in your life you need certain compounds?
Yeah.
Because there are certain problems coming up. So if you always eat a similar diet, then
That's right.
you won't have all the building blocks to
Yeah.
restore certain parts? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. And so if we look at eating seasonally, then those foods that are in season have those nutrients at their most optimal when they're picked and in season. So if we take citrus, for example, in the Australian winter, in fact, any winter really, citrus is more prolific than it is in the summertime, then those nutrients, the compounds are more bioavailable, for example, the vitamin C and the bioflavonoids at the peak of their season.
So that means the compounds that are good for in your body are better, or
Yeah, they're better because they're more readily available when they're picked in season, let's say at their peak in the winter time, than having lemons, oranges, and so forth throughout the summertime when they're not at their optimal.
well, that's interesting.
It's fantastic, isn't it? It's
But
amazing.
to come back on the first thing you said before the prostate, the tomatoes, you said that specific compound that was used in turmeric. What for effect does that have on the body then, and why would that be important?
So the Balinese, for example, would suggest that kunyit, their name for turmeric, helps to shrink cancerous tumours. So we can't make those claims in Western medicine, but certainly in Balinese food philosophy, they would often prescribe a jamu, a little tonic of turmeric, maybe some honey, maybe palm sugar to sweeten it, maybe some fresh lime juice or calamansi, something like that. And then they would endorse the fact that that would help to have a positive effect on lowering the cancer markers in certain tumours.
Because on a day-to-day effect, our bodies have to deal with cancerous cells, right?
Right.
So they have to get killed.
That's it. There's always this kind of biological warfare going on with us in a cellular component.
Yeah.
And sometimes that can be more savage, and sometimes that can be just the, kind of like the daily housekeeping of each cell, which I find is amazing. And if we can help to support or remove some of that or relieve some of those overloads using food as medicine, and of course good sleep, water, lifestyle, exercise, then we do have a little bit more in our power.
But I can imagine if there's like just turmeric has that one compound, that there are so many different facets of our body that needs
constant repair.
Yeah. That how can we ever understand every part of it to then be able to utilize more of it?
I think that's why nutrition is still such an unknown in so many, factors. Like we can study the biochemistry of nutrition and understand the amino acid, the protein. We can understand maybe almost in a metaphysical light, components of nutrition and certainly healing around food. But I don't think in our lifetime we'll ever completely understand the nuances of everything. We've only revealed certain amounts of the plant kingdom that can be beneficial to us.
Yeah.
So with the turmeric, that compound, it's a carotenoid called curcumin, and that has a very proven anti-inflammatory response, so much so that it's readily available in supplement form. I take it in supplement form, and I do notice the difference on, chef's hands, arthritis, and...
Oh, really?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, so I take the supplement form because it's more available, but of course I can supplement that with my own dietary pantry and cooking as well.
Because with the whole superfood era and people talking about superfood, I sometimes think if I put so many powerful things in one smoothie or in food, I feel like how is my body ever able to absorb all the right parts of it? And it will not be overloaded.
Absolutely. And you can certainly flood your body with too much information using your nutrition as well. So sometimes less is more. If we consider things like food synergy, which could also be related to companion planting for gardeners. So if we have tomato and basil, what grows together goes together. And we know from particularly beautiful Italian caprese salads, tomato and basil, of course, they grow together, they're companion plants, but they look beautiful on the plate and they're certainly delicious. So if we look at the actual synergy of those ingredients, we can then look at the synergy of other ingredients if we took a salad with a protein and how that would be greater than the individual components of each ingredient. So if we look at that without pureeing it into a smoothie, then we've got those positive attributes. But if we puree everything and use this magic powder, let's say from South America, and this magic powder from China, and this supplement from maybe other parts of Mexico, then in my book there's too much information. Sometimes I think have the protein powder, maybe have chia seeds, that's what works for me, and maybe some coconut water, but you don't really need all those other things if you're fit and well.
Yeah. One of those things can be very powerful by itself.
Right.
But then thinking it will be masterfully powerful if you combine everything together would be a bit
Too much.
Too much.
Yeah, I think so. Unless your body really needs it. But if you're having quite complex protein smoothies, green smoothies, maybe you're putting raw kale into it, that can be quite hazardous for the digestion because the kale is a brassica vegetable which has a lot of sulfur. So if you're not blanching the kale, for example, and you're drinking that cold pureed form of that, quite a robust ingredient, that can do more damage than good.
So, makes sense. So even starting with something that is beneficial for your
Right.
health needs to be understood well enough for it to be, if you want to utilize it, because if I want to use it, I want to use it for my health, but if I don't use it the right way, it won't be that beneficial for
That's
my
right.
health, right?
Yeah, it can be counterintuitive and it can negate the positive attributes of what you're trying to achieve.
Man, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, it changes the game a little because a lot of people would like to just survive on supplements and smoothies, but in the end, you still need to chew. You still need to have that digestion process as well. I mean, smoothies are certainly very beneficial as an example, but you want to look at eating that rainbow of foods across a week, not necessarily just one day. We look at how you eat across a week.
That makes sense. In all the years that you've been in food as medicine, is there a story or a specific person that stands out where you've seen that food as medicine has made a massive impact or change?
Yeah, there's a couple of cases. There's one that I always come back to, which was a patient in the school clinic a long, long time ago, and he was suffering with prostate cancer, and he didn't want to treat it commercially, so he treated it, or not using all of Western medicine, so he treated it naturopathically and would come to the school clinic, and he was one of those patients that started having more cooked tomato in his diet, and we definitely saw his prostate stimulating antigen, that's the PSA level, come down to a healthy range. He didn't have chemo at that time, he didn't have radiation. This was back in the very early 2000s, and he was able to control his PSA levels using food as medicine. And probably changes to his lifestyle. I wasn't privy to everything, but there was a significant change, and that was like, wow, it really does work. Yeah. And I think on a day-to-day level, we know that we can feel better when we eat well, or you have comfort food, or you hand make your food, then you feel better than perhaps eating in a surf club or, some of the pubs around Australia.
I agree.
That's all friendly too. It's great. But when you cook your own food, you certainly feel much better than.
There's something about having cooked it yourself that makes it like, oh yeah.
Yeah.
This is so tasty.
It's very nourishing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And even if you eat too much of it, it's like, yeah, but I made it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm proud.
You didn't buy it from a supermarket.
But that's an amazing story, though, that someone was able to shrink down their prostate cancer. And is that just by cooked tomato is specifically...
Yeah, so the lycopene...
What's the compound?
The compound is called lycopene. Yeah, lycopene. Lycopene. There's a couple of different spellings, and that has a significant effect. It usually comes from red-coloured foods, tomatoes, obviously, capsicums, and sometimes some of the melons and so forth, watermelon that is. So wherever that red colour is, or the orange and sweet potatoes, that contains lycopene. But usually the cooked tomatoes is what the study of the Mediterranean diet usually focuses on. The olives, of course, the lifestyle of a Mediterranean diet, but because they use a lot of sugo or concassé or I can't remember the other word for that tomato puree, but tinned tomatoes for pasta sauces, pizzas and so forth.
Yeah, because...
Passata is the word I'm looking for.
I don't know a lot about medicine, it's not my study.
Sure.
But does that then prove or showcase that with certain illnesses that the body needs or is in lack of certain nutrients, it's just really wanting them, and it can still solve a problem it has, but it just needs the right thing to be able to solve that problem?
Yeah, absolutely. And there are some things, of course, maybe DNA related that the body can't always fix, but you can change your DNA. It's probably a whole nother conversation, but through the study of epigenetics, which is, where modern science, nutrition is really headed to on that cellular level is really exciting as well. And of course, stem cell research and the amazing work they do with stem cells, which I don't quite fully understand, but, I'm really interested in it as well.
Yeah.
So there are lots of things you can do, but I think on a general basis, on a daily basis, it's about eating mostly 80% of what you can prepare at home. And that's my rule too, the 80-20 rule, do 80% as much as you can, and then the 20%, you do, the best you can,
I like that.
but hopefully you have fun along the way.
Yeah. I find that in the pursuit of eating healthy or living healthier, you shouldn't get anxious
You're
by
right.
doing it, because that changes the
It
purpose
negates
of it.
everything.
It negates the purpose of
that's
it.
right.
Because stress is
Yeah.
such a powerful
Yeah.
thing on your body that if you want to be healthy, don't make it feel stressful.
That's exactly right. And I think, in the pursuit of optimal wellness and health through nutrition, I think sometimes we can put too much onus on ourselves. We can try and control it too much, but sometimes we have to let go and just enjoy life as well, because, the modern world's quite treacherous at the moment. I mean, just look at geopolitics, for example, and that's stressful enough. So if you then eat the wrong foods or have too much fun and then the next day you beat yourself up, as we say in Australia, you kind of go, oh, why? It's like, that's just your body wanting to kind of revel in what a lot of study is called around the pain body. You just want to keep into this lack mindset, whereas it's okay to kind of, let go a little bit.
Yeah.
Because there's enough pressure around us. That's my philosophy anyway, Tom, and it works for me.
I like that sound. That is really cool. Yeah, especially because I get stuck sometimes in very simple things that I don't have to. And then when I realize I'm doing it, that's the moment I can let go of it.
Yeah.
But I don't want to stay in it, especially if my desire for eating healthier, because I think that's for the longevity of my body. But if the process of being able to cook it, plan for it, to get it, is giving me all of this hassle and doesn't make me feel good, I think I'm doing something wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, you're still emitting a negative vibration if you did something that you don't feel that great about the next day or whatever, or perhaps you had a hamburger or a drive-through hamburger or something, but you probably enjoyed it at the time. So there was an endorphin, rush, maybe a dopamine connection there. But then the next day, if you've let your dopamine run out and you don't value that experience, you negate the whole process, It's easy, particularly when you're younger, to bounce back from a week of bad food. But it's not as easy to come back to the gym after a week or two of no training because you get sore or you pull up and you need different fuel in order to, recover a lot more effectively.
Yeah, you need the right things.
Right.
For you personally, what does food as medicine mean for you?
So I find now that all the food in the world that's not processed, all the fresh available product and produce that's available, all has secret magic powers and all super magic powers. So I used to be very righteous, I think, when I was much younger about this. Perhaps when I was beginning my journey, it was like my way or the highway, and now I'm a lot more relaxed. I'm like, you know what? In my garden, I grow most of our own herbs. We grow watercress and as many other salad ingredients that I can. So at least I can go out there and pick some parsley that I'm looking at now, first thing in the morning, not just to freshen my breath, but to connect to the soil. So those ingredients that we have and we're able to grow in our backyards, I think are just as important as investing in superfoods. So these days I would probably eat as many dark green leafy vegetables as I can. I probably don't eat as much fresh fruit as other people, just out of habit, unless I can find local apples, which are my favourite things. Bananas, of course, in this part of the world. But I try to eat in season where possible. And when I'm feeling a little bit run down, the first thing that I'll do is cook brown rice. And some broccoli or something that's easily available from the supermarket if I have to shop there, just to bring me back. If I've been travelling a lot, then I have brown rice, broccoli and maybe some tuna or just keep it vegetarian with tofu. And I'll have that for breakfast for 1 or 2 days.
Simple, and it works for you.
Yeah, sometimes with seaweed from the Japanese pantry behind me. So I doctor it a little bit, but it's pretty basic, just so I'm eating the most optimal whole foods I can for a couple of days.
And that's just a personal preference.
Yeah, yeah.
What is the reason behind the dark leafy vegetable?
So most of those dark green leafy vegetables, a lot of them are either spinach, such as normal leafy spinach, or things like silver beet. So they have maximum amount of nutrients. So I prefer to have silver beet over kale. I find it is a little sweeter and easier to cook. Silver beet also contains non-heme iron, so it's a plant source of iron as well. So a lot of those dark green leafy vegetables have more antioxidants, and they can just help you feel better and stronger faster.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
And if someone wants to start with a better understanding of using food as medicine or as to recover themselves just for a longer term of eating well, where can they start?
I think it's more affordable, or it's most affordable to start with whole grains if they're eating whole grains. So sometimes weaning themselves from plain flour substitutes and products that are made with flour to moving into using quinoa, different rices, other cereals like millet and so forth, so they can feel if they've got more energy longer. Sometimes the gluten from flour can weigh people down and they don't realise that. They can feel more fatigued because if they have more of a gluten-free diet, they might feel better over a period of time. So that's one of the best ways to start, but also just supplementing with trying to go to the farmer's market and buy produce that's been grown around your neighbourhood or in your region, rather than just relying on supermarket ingredients, which could be grown all over the country and imported from all over the world.
Yeah.
Whereas if you shop with your local farmer, when you digest those ingredients, they have been grown in the soil that hopefully is not too far from where you live. So we look at that holistic approach and a biodynamic approach to where that food is grown and how the nutrients from the soil are imparted into those ingredients.
Is that because if you live in the same surroundings,
Right.
what you eat,
Right, absolutely.
the things your body would need, because the sun changes,
Exactly.
plants will store things for themselves.
That's
But
right.
because they're in the same surrounding, if we eat them, they can help us as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's so much deep dive research into that as well, that if you eat from the land that you're surrounded by, so whether it's the ocean, you're having local fish, you're having beautiful rainforest ingredients, for example, from this rich red soil up in my neighbourhood, then the selenium, which is a trace mineral from the soil that we need to make up our kind of immune system as well, then that is coming directly from that earth, hopefully within 100 kilometres of where you live. Probably closer in the Gold Coast and Northern Rivers
It
here,
does
where
make
it's such a
sense
food
to
ball.
me that if, because of my surroundings, I'm lacking something,
Right.
that another thing, an animal or a plant, is
Yeah.
storing that thing for themselves, and then by eating that, I can supplement what I need.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Like sometimes you know you need more
like
protein and not in the form of a protein shake, you know, whether you eat red meat or white meat or fish, you might feel that you just feel better for eating that protein.
Yeah.
You know, for me, I still eat red meat, happily so. I don't eat it, maybe I'd eat it once a fortnight, but I feel so much better when I have that steak, if that's what I felt that I needed. Maybe I needed the iron as well as the protein input as well.
I like principle thinking, and to understand something better, it's nice to have a sort of a foundation or a thought behind the thought.
Yeah.
What is one of the basic principles behind food as medicine and can have a better base layer for someone to understand how
Sure.
to think?
Sure.
Because when they use their own brain, makes
Yeah,
it easier to
absolutely.
feel and
And with
understand,
awareness, they have choice, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
If they have
Yeah.
the awareness and the understanding, and perhaps they have proof that this will work, then embracing more of a whole food pantry and trying to eat less processed food. So less food out of packets and boxes, even if you're making your own crackers or cookies or biscuits or pasta, as I know you guys make as well, then that can certainly have a huge impact on you. So that is a place to start.
So why is that? Why is something
Sure.
more nutritious
Sure.
but it's not?
That's a great question. So particularly with processed food, let's say what we call in Australia a biscuit, which they call in the States a bicky, we call in the States a cookie, then to make that biscuit crunchy, for example, will have a lot of hydrogenated fats, or what we call trans fats. So those fats are heated to such a high temperature that they originally liquid, and then as they heat to a high temperature, they harden up, so they give that biscuit crunch and texture. Whereas if we were to make that cookie biscuit at home from scratch, we'd probably use maybe oats or flour or whatever, for example, butter, and bake it at the right temperature, so the reaction of the butter and the flour and the starches create the crunch without the synthesized fats. So that's an example, because if you read any biscuit packet, even a cracker for cheese, there's usually a lot of emulsifiers and preservatives and so forth. If you buy commercial bread that's sliced in plastic, that is very different from buying sourdough or making sourdough.
Because the idea behind making that thing is more behind making a product. So it's like,
Right.
what do we need? We need crunch, softness,
Right,
longevity,
salt, yeah.
And then how can we make that happen in the product? And
That's it.
it's
But
not-
how can we preserve the shelf life?
Yeah, and the behind thought is not health, but it's just how to make it into a product that is sellable.
That's
and-
exactly
Okay.
That's exactly right. And so also the problem with when we go to the supermarket to buy our ingredients, often they're packed in plastic. Sometimes tomatoes are packed in plastic with maybe a polystyrene foam underneath it. And those, if they're not in plastic, they're often just left to ripen under fluorescent light in the supermarket. Whereas when we go to a farmer's market, those products are left, or that produce is left to ripen on the vine or on the tree or in the ground, and then picked by that farmer or that co-op and brought to the farmer's market.
Okay.
So you can see it's ripened in natural environment as opposed to ripening under fluorescent light while the lights are on in supermarkets. If you go past a supermarket, sometimes you'll see that the lights are only on in the produce section at night if you're in a shopping mall, and that is, to facilitate, to create false light, UV, so the vegetables ripen. Right. Or they ripen in the refrigerator, and the refrigerator or the cold room may have a light on it. So the natural occurring chemicals within, or compounds in a banana, for example, will continue to ripen under the artificial light, as opposed to picking them from the vine. We have bananas up there.
Interesting.
It's interesting, huh?
So if I understand it correctly, it's if you do whole foods, it's just you cut out the whole extra part that like businesses want to make something in the product and add things. So all the add-ons you cut away.
Right.
You want to focus on how can you make something as whole as possible. That's why the whole food.
That's right.
It's just
So a whole food is a food, for example, that has not been milled into flour. So if you're having the whole wheat grain, which you wouldn't really do, but you might have whole grain quinoa, which is a cereal. So whole cereal quinoa, where you can still see it in its natural tiny little spherical form, as opposed to using the quinoa flour, which is still fine. Or rice is processed and polished when it's harvested, but it doesn't go through other processes unless you want rice flour.
So we have spoken then about the add-ons that aren't fully necessary, but there are also things like loss of nutrients by different ways of processing, right? Because you have heating, cutting,
taking away the husk,
and that creates for removal of certain
layers
of like essential nutrients, right? From whatever it might be that it's.
Yeah, so during the process of milling, for example, when you mill wheat to make flour, you're taking away, I think it's either the aileron layer or the alveolin layer, I can't remember. So that's a component of that. By milling flour, you're making that sort of gluten and the peptides within the flour more available, which can be a little bit hazardous for some people. If you're eating the whole food ingredient, then brown rice, for example, with its, quite strong layer around it, then the natural fibres are also very good for you. So in the past, we were encouraged to have a really high protein diet, but with the rise of bowel cancer, for example, we should be eating more fibre. So if you eat less carbohydrates, naturally you're eating less fibre, unless you're eating carbohydrate-rich ingredients. So sometimes you can have a potato that's twice cooked, and that creates more resistant starch, which is better for your digestion than just once par-cooking a potato. So you might boil your potatoes and then bake them, scratch them and bake them to release the starch.
So there are, because I know of, like, my mother has always taught me about different ways that nutrients can leave vegetables. But my wife is teaching me that certain nutrients can be unlocked by more cooking something.
Yes.
Like by
That's right.
slow cooking,
Yes.
you have more benefits for more digestion than certain vegetables or things could have had when they weren't as cooked.
So sometimes we look at, if we look at a slow cooked dish, we can look at how effective that is to digest. So for someone that's convalescing, maybe they're going through chemotherapy or radiotherapy, or maybe they have a broken heart, they're grieving, for example. So for that patient, I would always prescribe slow cooked food based on Chinese medicine that is easy for that person to digest, because their heart or their head is quite depleted. They're going through a lot of stuff. And so, sure, you might say, here, have a salad and you'll feel better. But sometimes they need soup. Sometimes they need classic Australian food, spaghetti bolognese, for example. Yeah. Sometimes they need slow-cooked chicken broth just to bring them back to a sense of recovery and nurture.
Is that also because I was recently speaking with someone who said that anxiety can sometimes have a massive impact on certain parts of your body, and it can stop certain processes from happening, like digestion can slow down in a state of high anxiety.
Absolutely.
So a food that is easily digestible
for the anxious person, for someone that's going through extreme stress, anxiety, rather than having a takeaway hamburger, they would be better to kind of sit down and have some pumpkin and ginger soup or a slow cooked chicken dish, because the assimilation of those ingredients is faster or more effective than if they were to sit down and eat kind of like a well-done steak, for example. So if they have something that's easy to digest, that takes pressure off their digestion and it helps to soothe their anxiety. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's very, very powerful. Like, a lot of people underestimate it, but most cultures have a chicken soup, or if they're vegetarian, they have a soup or a casserole or a stew or a cassoulet that is slow cooked over time as part of their medicinal first aid kit. Like the Jewish community, of course, have chicken soup. That's their remedy. Yeah. The Italians have a brodo, so like a pasta soup. The Japanese have miso soup. The Chinese have all sorts of soups, short soup and so forth. Polish, I'm sure, Hungarian all have a basic soup, maybe cabbage soup or something like that, that is key to their cultural identity and their medicinal food prescription.
Because it fits in with when they're sick, it fits in when they're down.
Like a lot of people crave things like risotto if they don't eat pasta, but they might eat risotto because it has a nurturing effect and it's cooked over time.
Yeah, that's real cool.
Yeah, it's awesome, huh? And it's very easy to understand when it's broken down like that, I hope.
I feel when I understand the underlayer of what's behind it, like a principle or like a guiding thought, it makes me easier to then use it in my day-to-day life. And I use it for everything, like for my jiu-jitsu training. I want to know the simplest thing to understand, like, oh, that's why we do that.
Yeah.
And then for nutrition, it's like, oh, sometimes we have to cook something longer. That's why we do that.
That's why.
Because as a kid, I was always asking why.
I'm sure you were. Inquiring minds want to know.
Until this woman said, what do you think yourself? And then out of nowhere, my brain was, oh, I can think. Right.
That
was quite fun. But that is awesome.
But also sometimes you need ingredients that are quickly cooked, like steamed vegetables, green vegetables. If you overcook broccoli, like they did in Australia, my grandfather's generation, and cauliflower, you cook the sulfur, all the good antioxidants out of it when you cook it for 3 hours.
Yeah.
Whereas if you steam it, preferably in a steaming basket, then just for a few minutes you get that maximum nutrient when it's bright green or nice and white for cauliflower or something
cooking,
like
you
that.
call it blanching.
Cooking, we call it blanching, yeah. So there's 4 or 5 different techniques, but typically for vegetables there would be blanching, boiling and steaming. Where the water is underneath the vegetable, usually it makes it more nutritious. It sears in the ingredients. When you boil them, then you discard some of the nutrients out of the boiling water.
Okay.
So by steaming, you're kind of trapping the nutrients within the steaming process. And it's only a few minutes, and that's why stir fry is also very healthy, because it's a very fast turnaround as well.
So just to get an overview of the last few things that we spoke of, and let me see if I get it right so I can summarize it slightly for myself. But to have a good understanding of why something is done, let's say slow cooking is good because it's an easy digestible
Right.
for certain things that need longer cooking for it to be able to digest it better. And that makes that a good thing sometimes.
Yeah.
But certain vegetables, if you overcook them, you can lose certain nutrients, right? And then steaming, short-term blanching,
That's it.
and cooking it for 3 minutes can then still help to be able to digest it, but keep the nutrients in it, right? And then there are also other ways of cutting and using your vegetables so that you don't lose too many of the nutrients.
Yeah.
Because in essence, to think about food as medicine, it would be the back thought is, how can I give my body the nutrients it needs now to be able to resolve problems and sustain my current living. And then to add on that, my living environment can have impacts on my body, and by utilizing things that grow around me, they can supplement the things that I lack, because my environment has that strain on me, and that will provide what I need.
Yeah.
Is that a bit of an overview?
Yeah,
of
absolutely.
what
I mean, for some people, they still need some supplementation in nutrient form, but typically if you eat the rainbow over a period of 5 to 7 days, you will feel better longer. And really what we're looking at is aging well, optimal longevity, but also being able to be physically active and get up and down out of a chair and not walk with an aid as we age into our 80s and 90s. And typically we're living, as a human race, we're living longer these days. So the more you can do in your younger years will hold you up for your older years.
How do you think of food in the role in after a workout regarding recovery? How do you think that has its place?
So certainly, depending on your motivational goals for your training, so if it's lean muscle mass building and so forth, then of course protein is really important, but you still do need to refuel. I think for optimal muscle mass, I think they used to say within half an hour of the workout. Now that's not always feasible unless you're having a smoothie. You can't get from the gym back to your kitchen and do that. But you can certainly make food in advance. So maybe like a high protein salad that you can have to assemble if you're going back to work, something like that. So I think fuel is really important. But again, it's what you do over a long period of time rather than that quick fix within the week.
Because do you think that long-term nutrition plays a big role in the problems or injuries that sometimes just happen out of nowhere?
Yeah.
But actually
Yeah.
There's a long backstory behind
Yeah,
it.
so usually, most of us have inflammation. So if there's too much inflammation, then that can create, a proneness for like bursitis in the shoulder, for example, which is an inflammatory response. Or it might be arthritis or something like that. So if you know that you're having too much too many inflammatory foods in your gut and you're prone to flare-ups, then you're going to have more joint pain, for example. You're not going to recover as rapidly as if you're doing having a long-term diet of anti-inflammatory foods. So it can definitely wreak a lot of havoc. If you're having too much red meat as your protein fuel, then that can be very acid forming in the digestion. It creates too much acidity. Where there's too much acidity, there's too much heat. And again, that can create an inflammatory response as well. So your body's always in a state of anabolic and catabolic process. So if you eat animal flesh, as an example, and lots of grains, and those ingredients are very anabolic, which we know from anabolic steroids and so forth, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. But by eating more plants, they're catabolic. They break everything down. So every day your digestive system is in this constant state of repair and renewal, building up using the anabolic ingredients that you're taking and then breaking down the waste products, the acid forming, using the alkaline ingredients that you're having. So if you're having too much coffee, too much red meat, too much alcohol, too much sugar, those four things, caffeine I said, and maybe cigarettes or vape or something, then those 5 things are really highly acid forming in the body. And so you need to have more alkalizing ingredients, hence the green leafy vegetables, fruit especially.
Because in what way can that form a problem on long-term nutrition intake?
Sure. So too much acidity, again, can lead to things like joint degeneration. Too much acidity in the gut erodes the actual digestive system and can become more inflamed. So ulceration in the gut, for example, and then you can soothe that out with something like aloe vera. So there's lots of home remedies you can do to calm down your digestion. I mean, antacid is sold in supermarkets and over-the-counter pharmacies in order to find that balance and reduce acidity, whereas aloe vera juice, coconut water can help to reduce that as well.
Because we were speaking about the recovery and how food works in that, and you said that certain things can build up because obviously we're creatures of habit. I know myself, so I know I'm quite habitual. I eat a lot of oatmeal every morning. But I find that maybe logically, if I think about it, if I only ate the same thing over and over again, I could get a lack or an overflow of something over a longer period of time. And that could result into maybe 10 years from now that I will have an easier injury somewhere because I wasn't able to recover.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? Is that
Well,
how? What do you think about that?
Your body is constantly renewing, and I think probably a good focus is the concept of detoxification.
Okay.
So if we focus on the liver and the digestive system, your liver is constantly renewing itself. It has little cells called hepatocytes. Excuse me.
Take your time.
And they are constantly regenerating, whereas other organs don't regenerate like the liver does. So your body's as primal as we are, it's also very advanced. So we don't always need to have the latest, greatest ingredient that's available because we can often find that in our daily menu. Sorry, that's
okay.
Green tea. The tannin gets to me after a while. Can be a little dry. So if we focus on the constant stage of renewal, then if you're just having fried chicken and French fries as your core diet and not many vegetables, eventually that will catch up with you because we talked about the trans fats in biscuits and so forth. Anything that makes fast food crispy or crunchy has usually been fried or baked in certain oils and other chemicals to give you that mouthfeel or crunch. So after about 40 years of eating like that, your body will start to deteriorate because it's not getting the cellular nutrients that can serve the cells that we're made up of. So it is very important to have that, broad range of ingredients.
Yeah, because I work out a lot. I see myself as I wouldn't say athlete, but I'm quite physical active. And I really appreciate when my body is able to recover quickly.
Yeah.
Because for my jiu-jitsu, I love being able to work out as much as I can. because it's a bit different than doing physical, like
Sure.
muscle building, because
Yeah.
then you need the rest to
But it's very
build.
functional,
But
isn't it?
yeah, it's functional, but I need to get the mind right, like the movement
Yeah.
and the training. So for me, it's very beneficial to be able to recover fast and to have enough energy to also do the other parts of life. So if my thinking is I want to always recover well, but also have the right nutrition and energy, how would I look at food then to find out what would work for me and how can I utilize that in the best way possible?
Well, I think it's important to look at the pathology, look at your blood test. You know, they'll always show maybe you are deficient in white blood cells and so forth. Maybe your immunity needs a little boosting. So it's good to have that medical analysis as well as looking at intuitive eating. What do you feel like you need? Like from an intelligent level, not like I feel like I need that packet of French fries or cookies or I don't know, chips as we call them here, you know.
Yeah.
So looking at what do you feel you need. Sometimes if you walk through a farmer's market, you might see beautiful cabbage, for example, and maybe your body's telling you in a very primal level, I need the nutrients that are in that particular ingredient. Or you might might have a craving for eggplant or something like that. You know, maybe the compounds within the eggplant or aubergine is what your body actually needs. So it is important to listen to your body, but it's also important to have that physical or that pathology tested so you can see maybe you're low in B vitamins.
Yeah.
And B vitamins are so important for the central nervous system. So anxiety, we talked about before, then that person may need also to have to supplement their diet with B vitamins that are otherwise available from animal flesh and whole grains as well.
Okay. Yeah, because like I wouldn't always be able to get a blood test. You have to go somewhere, pay for it,
Yeah.
get it. So,
It's usually free in Australia under Medicare.
oh, is it?
Yeah, but then your GP, you might have to pay
That's
the second follow-up appointment in order, you might need to pay a minimal fee.
Okay. If you
But
want
it
do
is good to
again,
have that appraisal because then they can see what markers are optimal and what markers need help. Maybe your cholesterol is really high. Maybe you inherited high cholesterol from your parents and don't know about it as at your age. I'm sure you didn't, but you know, that can then show you, okay, if you don't work on lowering your cholesterol levels, then that may come up for you in your next generation or your next decade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's actually a smart idea.
Yeah.
Just have a baseline as well.
A
for
baseline, because
myself.
then you've got contrast.
Yeah, because there's so much.
There's
to
so
understand,
much, and
so
it's
better
so-
than to know.
It's so confusing, like with the onset of the internet over the last, 25 years, 30 years now, you know, that information wasn't available unless you went to the library or you had an encyclopedia at home or you studied natural medicine, for example, or nutritional medicine, like I did in my office downstairs. I must have 200 cookbooks and nutrition books because when I was doing my undergraduate, there was no online. We didn't have Google, you know, back then, so you couldn't self-diagnose as well. So I think it's a matter of understanding the compounds and those ingredients, but knowing that fresh is best where possible. If you can buy food that's not wrapped in plastic, that is so much more advanced than buying it if it's been packed in a box and you reheat it in a microwave.
Yeah. And I like the idea of also using your subconscious, as in you see
Right.
something and
Yeah.
if it's not the thing you desire just because you haven't eaten that much and you want just quick sugar, because the only time I truly crave chocolate, that's just if I haven't eaten enough. And that's like
Yeah.
I see them or more chocolate.
Yeah, right.
But if I'm eating very good food and I'm like, or bulking, I call it sometimes, but I never crave anything like that, quick sugars, because it's not the thing that fits with my goal of like training
Yeah.
and getting more.
Well, you feel fuller longer when you eat well. When you have your oats in the morning, you would feel fuller longer because of that complex carbohydrate, slow release over the period of 8 hours.
But something I've been doing is I eat my oats, but because I had a long period of time that I put a lot of peanut butter in there. And
Yeah.
that fat was too
Yeah.
much for my tummy.
Yeah.
After a few years, I couldn't do
Yeah.
that anymore. But now I'm eating 5 eggs with my
day?
every morning.
Wow.
So I also think that this is now 6 months that I've been doing that, so I don't know how many you can calculate. And that's been a lot of eggs. So I think, if I'm just being honest with myself, I think I
Right.
need to make a change there and be a bit.
That's a lot. Are
It
they
is a
organic eggs?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good start.
yeah,
Yeah. So five is a lot, but you're very active. But if you feel like, oh, maybe it is a little too much, then part of your subconscious may know better and try
Yeah.
and help you maybe cut down to 4 or 3.
or get some variety, like eat
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
something else in the
Variety
morning
is really
for-
important, and maybe bringing on some plant-based protein sources like tempeh, which is very nutritious, or tofu, just to switch it up. You might not enjoy it in the beginning, but you can learn to love different sources. For me, I would eat fish for breakfast every morning if I could. It's not always affordable because fish is still quite expensive, and I don't really want to cook fish first thing in the morning. But when I'm traveling through Asia, then particularly in Japan, right? That Japanese breakfast is fish and rice and miso soup and pickles. It's heaven, isn't it?
Man, I love starting my day off with
Yeah.
warm food.
Yeah.
And especially, or even just sashimi.
Yeah.
Right? Give me some. And especially when I realize how nice it is to have different parts and
Yeah.
making different bites.
Yeah,
Just makes the experience of
Yeah.
eating so much better. Like, oh, get a bit of rice. Oh, I have a bit
Yeah.
of fish. Oh, I have a bit of pickled vegetables or any have a bit
absolutely.
of salty soup.
Yeah.
And then with that is just, I can start my day
Yeah.
now. And
Whereas
add-
most people would prefer to start their day with cereal from a box, but I would happily eat Japanese food every day of my life if I could.
Me too, like definitely. Because I find cereal, I eat it now, 15 minutes later, I'm
You're
hungry again.
hungry again. I rarely eat it, but when I do, then I think I get such a sugar hit from the carbohydrate that within about an hour I'm like, oh, what else can I eat now? Whereas if I eat rice, brown rice, white rice, whatever, Japanese style, have some protein and some vegetables, I'm done.
I'm good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
until late afternoon, early evening.
Yeah, I lived in this year for 3 months in Japan,
I
and
know.
I had a bit of money saved up, so I could eat out 2 times a day, and that made for like I actually gained weight, and I wasn't eating more than I used to do, but just because I had quite a variety in the food I ate, the rice, the fish, the proteins, the vegetables, and the different things, and I luckily had this small little restaurant that became my family house. They feel like my Japanese family.
Yeah,
now.
beautiful.
And they saw me twice a day. Tom, and you want Tom special? Yeah, Tom special.
Fantastic.
And I was like,
That's beautiful.
that was really awesome.
Beautiful.
But to come back on, because I really like talking about the fitness aspect of it and how it helps recovery and energy. But I want to dive a bit deeper into what you think the connection of food can be regarding mental health as well,
Sure.
and anxiety, and how
Sure.
it can cause, but also can have a positive effect on it.
Sure. So, from a Chinese medicine perspective, anxiety is related to the kidney energy. And the color of the kidney energy, according to Chinese medicine, is black. So, black beans are very, very effective for pacifying anxiety and other kidney related emotions. So, fear and anxiety come from the kidney area. So, in order to release or relax some of that anxiety, again, slow cooked foods are really, really important. Fresh, abundant whole foods are important, but things that you can take, foods that you can eat that take the pressure off the digestion, like the slow cooked foods, maybe porridge in the morning, for example, again, can help to soothe the anxiety. The triggers, of course, too much caffeine gives you the jitters, doesn't it? You know, that's very anxious forming.
Feels the same as anxiety, yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's very adrenal. So anxiety kind of comes in around the adrenal glands and so forth. So pacifying the adrenaline, calming that down, and having more foods that can stabilize the nervous system is really important.
Because if we dive a bit deeper into what is going on, do you know what is going on in a moment when I would feel anxious, and why would food then help me, and why would that type of food help me?
Sure. So anxiety too much adrenaline pumping through the kidneys can release too much hydrochloric acid in the digestion. So you do feel more acidic, you feel more uptight and so forth. And what you want is sort of to relax, take some deep breaths and work within your parasympathetic nervous system rather than the central nervous system, which is your fight or flight mechanism. So breath work is so important, and therefore just taking, you know, really good whole foods, maybe some steamed chicken, maybe steamed fish or some roasted chicken, something like that if you eat meat, that's more comforting and more calming. So oats in particular are very, very calming on the digestion.
Because the effect of an anxious state of being, what does that has for effect on your digestive system?
Yeah, absolutely. So oats, for example, have tryptophan, and turkey and chicken to a certain extent. Those foods create more amino acid tryptophan, which is very calming, relaxing, and that works together with magnesium in the cell and a couple of the B vitamins as well. So they help to relax you over time. It's really, really important. You can look after anxiety conditions with food as medicine, but sometimes it can be extreme. So too much coffee, too much sugar, too much alcohol, too much physical stress and emotional stress and other external drivers can feed anxiety as well. Financial stress, of course, is anxiety.
Many
You know,
factors.
often we're anxious about what's happening right now, but we worry about things that haven't happened. So worry doesn't really work because that hasn't happened, it's in the future. But anxiety is usually very present. You know, anxiety, you can be anxious about your school results, for example, if you're studying, or a test, or any kind of work challenge can be anxiety. But worrying at night is usually something that is fed from anxiety, not enough sleep, too many triggers, or you're just not getting the rest that you need.
And as I understand it, is the anxious feeling can have an impact on, because the adrenaline releases through your...
That's right.
What was the gland?
So the kidneys,
The kidneys?
so the adrenal glands are attached to the kidneys,
Yeah.
and the kidney system and the digestive system work very synergistically together.
Okay.
So if you're overworking your kidneys with too much adrenaline, always worried, always in fight or flight, then that in turn can impart your digestive system.
Because your kidneys, they help for cleaning as well.
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
So
that's right. So they govern filtration
Yeah.
and water. And so, of course, water, we're mostly water. So if your whole kind of water regulation from your kidneys into your bladder and so forth, different, your urinary system is different, but that all works in turn. And if you're creating too much hyperacidity in your digestion, then that is going to disrupt your whole digestive system and in turn upset your central nervous system as well.
And can that build up over time?
Yeah, of course. I mean, we have an expression in Australia, you know, he or she was a nervous wreck, you know, or you've missed a plane, you know, you're sitting at the airport like really strung out, and that's your anxiety and central nervous system working overload, because you then are in such a state, you've missed your airplane, you have to buy another ticket these days. You can't just get on the next plane. So that's very stress-inducing. Then you have more coffee because you need to stay up for the flight, or you know how it rolls.
I do.
Or then you eat more sugar, or you have a hamburger or something deep fried at the airport, then you don't feel so great. So again, it really escalates. And you see much older people with a lifetime of that. And then maybe they come to a health retreat like where I work, or they go just on holidays to Bali and they might take up yoga. They have a significant change in their lifestyle because they then know how to control their central nervous system.
Because, not to make anyone scared, but the long impact of anxiety and not being able to digest properly,
Right.
what type of impact can that have on your body?
Well, again, that can erode your good digestive acid, create too much acidity in the digestion. That can, in turn, relate to ulceration in the digestive tract. And that, in turn, if you have too much inflammation in your digestive tract, it can kind of, maybe not burn holes, but you can see digestive system symptoms, things like leaky gut, where there's actual, not necessarily holes, as I say, but there's impairment to the digestive function. And that, in turn, can then invite more disease, like autoimmune disease, like lupus and so forth, where your immune system starts to fight against itself, can often be triggered from too much anxiety.
Oh.
So there's a lot of, I'm not that qualified in immuno diseases to really talk more about that, but it certainly relates to that. So looking after your immunity and supporting your stress responses can help prevent.
Because you have a background with teaching and resorts as well to eat, to create healthier
Right.
foods. And what is then the balance they use? Because they implement a stress-free environment and food. What is it that you think is then where the big change happens for them to release all of these things that could have been building up? And
Yeah. So usually we see that over a 7-day period in health resorts or health retreats in the spa industry I work in, where the guest might come in completely burnt out or grieving or just kind of fed up with their lifestyle and they need to make change. Within 3 days we see significant change. One, they're not using their cell phones as much. They're not at work, obviously. They're in a natural environment. They may be having 2 spa treatments a day, but usually in the work that I do with the food-related work, they're eating 3 organic meals a day, plus they're having afternoon tea or morning tea, and they're not having dessert as such. They're reducing their caffeine intake while they're on the property, depending on which resort I'm working with. They're feeling better and they're having that turnaround. So usually by midweek of their stay, they're sleeping better, which is really important. They're drinking maybe up to 2 litres of water a day, which they wouldn't do at home. And they're not drinking between meals, during meals rather. So we see that significant turnaround very, very quickly.
because your body changes when it has enough nutrients, it feels better.
Yeah.
When you're out of a stressful environment,
Yeah.
it feels better. And
Yeah.
do they do any movement? Or what
Oh,
is that?
absolutely. Like there's a whole program, most of the retreats and certainly the resorts where you're invited to either be part of a fixed program or you might opt in some of the resorts that I work with to do water aerobics in the afternoon or the mornings or to go to that yoga class or maybe take up sailing or something like that. So the more movement you have, and also we encourage a lot of incidental exercise walking around the resorts, but also they might go to yoga or a stretch class for the first time in their life and tap into how breath monitors the movement and the importance of breath work in that overall pursuit of optimal health and happiness and wellness.
Oh, yeah. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, because I was actually recently speaking with someone and we were talking about how the different parts of nutrition, breathing, thinking, movement, and water intake. I think there's 6. I'm
Right.
not sure how many. But that every part can just have a big impact on your mental state, your body, your life, and then on future injuries or
Yeah.
those type of things. And I feel this
Yeah.
time, same thing. It
It's
just
the same thing,
all
yeah.
fits together,
Yeah, it all
really.
fits together. And I think in the past we tried to segment everything, or you can't do this because you need to do this and this. But if we look at that holistic approach, if you don't have enough sleep one night, can you catch that up? If you don't have enough sleep for a month, then that is going to definitely erode all systems of the body. Because
Yeah.
sleep is king, nutrition is important, fitness is really important,
Yeah.
movement, of course, is king, but sleep and breath work is the ultimate.
Yeah.
Because we see, the animals, like our cat here, he sleeps most of the day. He's getting older, but animals are best at sleeping when they want to.
Yeah. Because they know when to recover.
And then they want to play or run around or just talk to you all day,
It's
So
a
we
funny
need to-
story. Like when I was younger, I got sick quite often. Maybe also I didn't want to go to school, but
Yes.
I got sick maybe, let's say 7, 8 times a year. So quite often, just snotty nose, maybe symptoms what someone would call hay fever. But I
Right.
get lots of tears. I couldn't look out of my eyes.
Wow.
And sunlight was detrimental to I couldn't move around. And I tried so many different things to find the best way to deal with that, because usually I would be sick for a week or a week and a half. And then 23 years later, I realized if I just sleep for 13 hours that day,
That's it.
do one more day of massive sleep, maybe
Yeah.
14 hours, bam, I'm better in 2 days.
Yeah.
Compared to trying to fight it for
Yeah.
a week and a half, trying to do other things, trying to sit, listen to books. I just sleep most of the day, really eat good soon. And what you say,
Yeah.
the simple things to digest,
Right.
bam.
I think it's really important that we do rest because we come from a culture in Australia anyway. We don't have a siesta here in the afternoon or anything like that. We're conditioned to work really hard and sometimes too hard. And it's important to take that day out a week, like a Sunday, and just relax. Maybe do some work in the garden. Maybe catch up on your favourite Netflix shows. That's absolutely fine. To switch off the monkey, the mental mind, you know, and that's so important in so many cultures, but certainly in the practice of yoga, it's about taming that monkey in the mind that's always like, oh, tomorrow I need to do this and this and this. But, you know, the beauty of watching good quality television is that you can tune out, or listening to music, you know, of course, or going to a concert or driving, is that you can tune out, and that's so important for your health, sanity and longevity.
I like your mix of, you also talk about yoga and nutrition and those type of things, but you also talk about just how in real life sometimes it's good to watch a movie.
Yeah,
it's good
absolutely.
to watch things to get your mind. It's not about being always focused.
No,
all the time,
it's not about just the screen time, and I mean it's about, you know, watching great art on the screen.
Yeah.
As opposed to watching mindless reality TV, you know, watching a great movie is very uplifting, and you can feel a part of that film, and it's very distracting in a good way.
Yeah, for me it was, when I was younger, I had a problem with sometimes watching too many things, but that's how I taught myself English. So looking back on it, I'm very grateful for it.
Yeah.
But it's now enough. Like now I have to, I always call it now, it's my comfort cookie.
Yeah,
like how some people had, I don't know, they go into eating because they're feeling comfortable, or some people have smoking, cigarettes, whatever. For me, it was watching something.
Yeah.
So it's my comfort cookie to go there. If I feel bad, it's that.
Yeah.
But now I find it's sometimes good to sit with those feelings. And recently I had a bet with my wife to not watch any entertainment for a whole week and just feel when I feel these emotions.
Yeah.
And it's been...
Was it challenging?
It is still. I'm still doing it. I'm doing it for another week. And it's really fun because it gives me the opportunity to explore new emotions and feelings. And I have never spoken with so many friends before because I'm looking for different ways to interact with people and to feel good and connected. Yeah. True connection.
True connection.
But
that's the key to longevity is connection. It really is. If you study the cultures, you've been to Okinawa. I haven't been yet. But if you study the cultures of the blue zones in particular, it's not just the food, because the food from the 5 blue zones is quite different. For some parts, it's more grain and dairy. Other parts, it's more fish and vegetables, for example, particularly the Mediterranean or in Okinawa. But each common denominator of the blue zones is community and the fact that the younger generations thrive with their older generations. So they have this cross-generational relationship that the elders of the village, for example, will sit with the kids constantly, and there's no, I don't want to sit with my grandparents, or my grandparents are old, I don't want to talk to them. There's this shared wisdom and the incidental exercise of always walking up hills with their shopping from the market and so forth, whereas we would tend to drive everywhere.
Yeah.
And we put our older generations into assisted living in Australia.
So it's with the accidental hills around, just gives the body's, what do you call the resistance to the body? So
that's right. Well, it's natural resistance training because they're naturally occurring incidental exercise because they can't ride the donkey up the hill. They have to walk with their carton of oranges or whatever's going on for them.
And I've seen, when I lived in Okinawa, I saw a man going to the supermarket. When I left from the supermarket to go back, he was still on the way to the supermarket. Like he was
walking.
He was walking.
Right.
And he was going very slow.
Yeah.
And I think the only thing he was going to do that day was going to the supermarket.
Yeah.
But
that was his mission for the day.
Quest for the day.
Exactly.
And he was doing it.
Yeah.
Like he was ready. He had all his sticks. He was like his back was very bent over, but he was ready to do this. And he was there like
that's it.
It was interesting to see.
And
but he looked very old. Like.
And I think too that's the beauty of, that coming back to the Japanese community and diet is that the way they eat, and certainly other Asian cultures that I've worked with as well, or Asian cuisines, they share the food. Like it's not just your set menu as such, it's shared table, and there's usually rice and soup and pickles, which is great for the digestion as well. And they've harvested a lot of or caught their own fish or harvested the vegetables, for example, for the pickles and whatever else is on
from the area.
In the bento box. Yeah.
I love that. One last question.
Yeah.
If you had to give one piece of advice and it's your favorite piece of advice and you could help most people with, what would you tell them?
Well, I think it comes back to eating a rainbow of food over the course of 7 days and being open to that concept that if one day you're traveling and you find yourself drinking Roadhouse coffee and muffins in plastic, for example, or pre-packed sandwiches, then know that that's okay for the day as long as you balance that out with your own health insurance for the rest of the week. So if you know you're having 4 or 5 restaurant meals or club meals, for example, because of your social activity, then make sure that you balance that out at the end of the week or on the weekend with your own cooking. Because nothing beats eating your own food, as we've talked about. So learn to be a better cook, or at least understand the processes of growing your own food, or at least shopping at the farmer's market.
Like that.
Yeah.
And the goal is just to get the right nutrition in there for what your body needs.
And listen to your body.
I love that. Thank you, Sam.
My pleasure.
If
Thank you for having me,
anyone
Tom.
has any questions for you, where could they reach you?
So my website is chefsamgowing.com.
Okay, cool. And your Instagram, do you have?
Instagram is Chef Sam Gowing. Yes, Chef Sam Gowing. I had to think about it then. At Chef Sam Gowing, Gowing.
Wonderful. I will put that in the description. So if you have any questions for Sam, please feel free to ask them and or put them in the comments, of course.
Thanks, Tom.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you so much for having this conversation.